It's 6 o'clock. We will call to order the special called meeting of the McMinnville City Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Ms. Recorder, if you'll please call the roll.
Sally Brock. Here. Victor Dunlap.
Present.
Stacy Harvey.
Present.
Steve Harvey.
Here.
Rachel Kirby.
Here.
Carrie Morton.
Here.
Metro Stain.
Present. I'll turn it over to Mr. May.
Okay, I just wanted to give you a brief summary of what you've got in front of you. If you go to this page here, and I've got it up on the TV here. List of the properties that we're discussing. Just kind of wanted to talk through my thoughts, and then we'll just hand it over to you all to decide what to do with these. But the first two are related to the Bernard School property. We've already donated those two. So those are completed. The next one on the list is the Rescue Squad property. From my understanding, that's still in our name. However, on the state property data website, it indicates that the Rescue Squad owns it. So I think we need to do some research on that because we're paying insurance on the building. So I think we need to figure that out. Otherwise, those three I propose to donate. I think we've talked about the Rescue Squad donating that in the past. So the next one there is
I'm sorry, should that one be deferred until such time as we know definitively?
We're going to, as the meeting progresses, discuss terms and conditions of conveyances. So you might want to address that.
Okay.
we could say, unless you already own it, we donate it to you.
Yeah.
I don't think they, I would think the night that we discussed that, was that, what Hillis, remember?
Mhm.
The Hillis guy that came in here, not Donald, the other Hillis, and we talked about donating it to him that night. It would have seemed to me that if they owned it, he might have said something that night.
Yeah,
They might not know.
so,
Yeah.
but at
Evidently, we
that
don't.
time, I looked and we owned it for sure. So I'm confused, but we can figure it out.
Okay.
The next one there is South Riverside Drive. That one is landlocked, as well as the one that's off of River Drive. Those are both along the river. Both landlocked, both have issues with access, and therefore I would propose that we sell those by sealed bid without a minimum. The next three are just regular vacant lots.
And can I interject one thing?
Yep.
Just because there was some confused glances. We're going to recommend, with maybe a couple of exceptions, that these conveyances of title to a successful bidder or buyer be without representation, warranty, or any matter affecting title. Much like a tax deed at a tax sale, you get what you get, and we're not saying what it is.
Well, the reason for my look was that if I remember, we have a piece of property over in the Mount Leo area above Rocket Park over there, and we couldn't sell that because it was landlocked unless it went to an adjacent piece of property.
That is this one.
Aggregation.
Well, it's another one, right?
That
So
is,
it's another one like that.
South Riverside Drive.
And so then the one on River Drive
Is also
is the
landlocked.
same situation. So if I remember correctly, the only people that we could transfer that to would be the people that own the adjacent properties.
Well, both of those, neither of those are technically landlocked because they can be aggregated with a contiguous or adjacent tract of property that has the requisite access to a public right of way. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Say that one more time.
You're not landlocked unless you have, unless the property lacks 50 feet of frontage on a public right of way. Standing alone, each of these tracts could be perceived to be landlocked. However, there are contiguous owners of property to the landlocked tract that give it access to the public right.
Right, which was my point, that the only viable alternative is a contiguous landowner.
The only person who would probably be interested in it, but it is a marketable title. It's not we can't convey it because it doesn't have that.
Okay,
It is a marketable title under the concept of aggregation.
okay.
And it's my understanding too, that those owners were under the impression that they owned that all the way to the river.
I know one
Is
of
that
them
correct?
is, yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
case
that-
on River Drive.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the case on South Riverside.
Okay.
That's a little different. So, the three there that are proposed to be sold with the sealed bid with a minimum. I had a formula that I used to come up with that. I did, search for comparable properties sold recently. And figured up the cost per acre, which came to 92,950. And then divided the acreage of each property by that number to come up with the minimum bid. Just a place to start the conversation. And then the last one there is the Potter Lane property. We own the lot. We need to get rid of the structure of the house, so. Proposing that we either donate that house or sell sealed bid with no minimum. With the caveat that the house must be removed. Whoever buys the house has to remove it, so. And that's it.
And that one, you're not buying the real estate, just the house.
Just the house itself.
Structure.
Yep.
That's the Potter Lane. Huh?
Can I point out what we were saying? Because I looked in the picture. Both of these two tracks that we openly discussed were landlocked. But technically not landlocked because this track, track number 7, 68, 67. See one on the rivers. You'll see there's a dog leg that cuts down on the side. That contiguous owner, that dog leg, could lawfully, without violating the Tennessee subdivision law of buying and selling tracts less than 5 acres. They can lawfully be conveyed, title can lawfully be conveyed because it can be aggregated to this tract that has the dog leg, or this tract above it, or any of these tracts that are contiguous to it on any side. So it's not technically landlocked. We wouldn't be doing violence in the law if somebody did, some third party did it on the side. This one on the river. We talked about the history of that TVA, had a mill waste down there 100 years ago, they abandoned. And when they abandoned it, and this is all documented in the city records. When they abandoned the mill waste, they gave the property owners along the mill waste an option to get a deed to that portion that joins the river. If those landowners on the mill waste would agree to give the city an easement for water and sewer. This landowner at that time, 100 years ago, for whatever reason, elected not to do that. If we were to have a bidder on that tract, it would be subject to the city easement for water and sewer. It's in 100-year ordinance. You question about that?
I guess at this point, we just make motions on these to take the recommendation or to enhance the recommendation that Mr. Ming has put forward. You want to do them individually or can we do them aggregately?
You could do the aggregate presented presentation. Just make sure the wording is conveyed by quit claim deed.
Got it. The only thing the only question I have about any of this right here is that Durham Street property. We've had that for a while, right? Seems like we've tried to find ways to get rid of that for a bit. Am I thinking right or wrong?
We've had it for a long time. I don't remember since I've been here that we've tried to sell it or do anything with it. I
Okay.
could be wrong.
I was just that piece of property. For some reason, I've looked at that 1,000 times going by there. If I don't remember what brought it up years ago, but it did. It just seems like to me for what that is, that maybe that recommendation might be a little high for that particular marketable piece of property right
It's
there.
very steep.
Yeah, so if we want to get it off our books, I would suggest that that be cut in half. If we want to get it off our books, I don't think we're gonna have any takers at that. At that right there, personally.
At 44.
I know it figures by the acre, but it's just not. It's just undesirable property really, unless you want to go spend 50 or 60 grand on that to have the wonderful neighborhood.
But what if it didn't sell for that minimum? That you know.
Just be right back here.
Yeah,
Here, and
I
then
would,
then you lower it the next go around.
I would guess we would come back here and say it didn't sell. Do you want to change the minimum?
Or you may get a counter offer.
I was wondering that, can it set that off? Can you do that?
Yes, I don't know why they couldn't make a counter. We're under no obligation to accept it. To reject it just like you can any other offer.
And does that come back to here, a counter offer,
So the offer would come back here. Is that what
the counter?
you're right?
Counter, offer.
Right.
I think that would be a logical way to do it.
So is that the caveat that we accept a sealed bid with a with a counter, or I mean, how do you a sealed bid's a sealed bid? I don't understand how you have a sealed bid and then sealed bid with a minimum, and then you immediately say, oh yeah, well, if it doesn't bring it, we'll negotiate with you. I think it has to be one or the other. I don't think you can do both.
Actually, you often negotiate after taking bids on various and sundry things.
Correct, but not with a minimum bid.
And can we not just do them all with no minimum bid for simplicity's sake?
Then we accept or reject
Yeah.
as presented. That may be the simple solution.
That is a good solution. And you do have the right to reject any and all bids.
Then
You're not
I'll make
committed to
that motion.
taking it. I would agree. One other question. I know George Huggins Drive, we've been through that before. There's something about those two little parcels on either side and it's in my head about.
They're owned by someone different. So,
Yeah. One of them's really narrow and I know there was some issue about all that.
I can tell you the story from Genesis chapter 1. Those two tracks that you're referring to, they're just strips on either side of a larger tract.
Right.
They were put to a tax sale, the strips were. The buyer bought one tract. And then he bought the second tract, and he didn't buy the middle tract. So the issue. The issue was there wasn't enough square footage in the two tracts for a buildable lot. In my lay understanding of that rule.
I believe they could have built a shotgun house, along the opposite way from what they normally build them.
How did it come to be cut up in those three tracks and that one so
That's why it
narrow?
was on the tax roll.
Okay,
And we're not responsible for that. The State Department of Property Assessment compiles the listings and plats, the maps. But I met with the guy. He didn't, at the end of the day, he didn't know what he was buying. It was a pig and puck, which it often is at tax sales. Because again, they're in the nature of a quitclaim deed. There's no warranties, representations on what you get at a tax sale. So he bought the two narrow strips, but not the center strip that would have made it a buildable lot.
Yeah.
And he went to the purchaser of the buildable lot and couldn't make a deal with it. So they sit there.
And so we ended up with that in the center, donated to Habitat, and then Habitat gave it back to us.
Mhm.
Probably just as
0.12
well really
acres.
It's really what?
wet.
Wet.
If you go around the city cemetery and toward Riverside Manor, you run right by it. It's gonna walk right by it.
There's a house there before.
Yeah, and we knocked it down.
It was blue.
Yep.
Mhm.
And when you walk through it, the floors felt like a trampoline. You really could.
Through the low to the ground.
Yeah, they were very springy. It was raised. The city tore it down.
One other question real quick before we forget. I don't think that this is maybe a question for Tim. We haven't declared the structure at 206 Potter Lane to be surplus.
It's the house to be removed.
Yeah,
It's not part of the realty, so we don't have to worry about that. Like selling a used truck.
So how do you market, I mean, this or advertise this? Is it newspaper, website, the general ways?
yeah, we'll probably do more than we normally do. We'll put out maybe this list. With the information on each property, we can put it out on social media, in the newspaper. We can request that the newspaper maybe write a story about it.
Okay. And how long do you typically,
Couple weeks
Couple
usually.
weeks.
That's, you all can put a time limit on that if you want. Doesn't matter. 2 weeks is probably adequate.
Well, I make a motion that we declare these in aggregate, subject to sale with seal bid without minimums, conveyance, via quitclaim deed prepared by the city attorney. Is that
We need to
Sufficient
add
language.
that, subject to our,
No, that's
Yeah.
in the general law.
okay.
We always have the right to turn down any bids, whatever we're selling.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey, a second by Mr. Steve Harvey. Any questions or further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Stacy Block? Stacy,
aye?
sorry, Sally Brock,
yes.
Deidre Dunlap,
Aye.
Stacy Harvey,
Aye.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby,
Yes.
Carrie Morton. Yes. Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. With nothing else to be discussed at this special call meeting, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.